All right. So my name is Erica Rodriguez, and this is Race in the United States. And
My name.
I'm with.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna let you introduce yourself. Sorry.
And my name is John Taya Randolph.
So do you want to?
Okay. So, what do you think? What is your overall opinion about race? How do you feel?
Oh, my overall opinion about race. I would say, before I even began this project, that my idea of race was that it was solely based on color. Because as a Hispanic that is very fair skinned, it's like I'm not considered black by African Americans and I'm not considered white by Caucasians. So I always find myself like, who am I? Because then it's like Hispanic is just an ethnicity, it's not a race. So it's like I just feel like it's really based on color. So people consider me white just because of the color of my skin. So I don't think it's like, exactly what your culture is, your religion, your skin color, your features. I just think it's solely based off of black and white. And like maybe a few other regions, like I think, what is it? Like Asians and
Yeah.
Native Americans. Like it's very limited. So it doesn't cover the whole spectrum of ethnicities. It's basically just, I don't know, man-made, to be honest.
Yeah. Even I feel the same. For me, I thought it was all about color too until reading this, and it opened my eyes to a lot more. And I thought, yeah, I think that race being racist is just dumb anyway. I really try to ignore stuff like that. So for them having this topic, it was interesting for me.
Wait, so can I ask you a question? You said something, to me, interesting, especially you being like dark skin complexion. I don't know what your ethnicity is. Do you mind telling me? Or
I'm African American. My
okay, so I just didn't want to assume in case you were from, whichever background. But at the same, it's like, being an African American, I'm very surprised that you're just like, that's something I ignore. Has that been very easy for you to ignore? Have you encountered situations where you feel like you're being like discriminatized or
yeah,
discriminated against?
actually often I do, but I try to ignore it because I feel like we're all the same. I don't want to get into get into nonsense. It doesn't make sense to me being racist.
So, what do you think about? I mean, this is a little bit going deep into the issue of race,
Mm-hmm.
but what do you think of colorism? So it's like, have you faced that as well? Or
Like, what do you mean?
so because you're like of darker complexion, do you feel like, light skinned African American women put you down because you're of darker complexion? Or is that something you don't really deal with?
I don't really necessarily deal with it, actually. The only thing I've had, like, no, I don't, I never really dealt with anything. I mean, of course, people like, I don't know. I never really dealt anything where I'm like, dang. It's just like stuff I see out there, and it's just like, wow, that is kind of just like how in a workplace, how white women and men make more money than African. That I mean, that affects me, of course, but and that's something I can't obviously ignore, but it's also something I can't really do something about.
I mean, I'm kind of in a similar situation because I feel as though I'm not being compensated for my efforts at work
Mhm.
fairly.
Right.
And I'm not sure what the reason is, But I mean, I would definitely agree with that statement because that is proven that, minorities definitely get paid less than Caucasians. I mean, I would say we just have to continue to fight what we deserve individually. So like setting up that meeting with our bosses and kind of just, being confident and saying like, hey, I would like a raise, or I would like a review of my roles and responsibilities, and I want to reevaluate what my salary should be or what my compensation should be based on what my efforts are, and comparing it to my peers as well. But that was going a little deep into it, but I mean,
like you said, I agree that like race is man-made. Like there's no, we all just came up with this stuff, and just reading the history and stuff is, it gets too deep. It's too deep.
actually this project, like in all realness, has woken me up. That's the best way to phrase it, because before I just thought like, I didn't know the politics behind it. I didn't know all of that. I didn't know the history really behind it. Like I only knew the basic history, but I didn't really,
Like the
as an
slavery
adult,
stuff.
register what happened. And after reading this, I'm like, wow.
Me too.
I'm just like, oh my God. And now I'm like, you know what? This is totally radical because, I have to keep it, I have to keep it PG, but it's just, I am very surprised at how race came about. And it just proves my point that of why I think it's about color, because it pretty much was. And then from that point on, it was kind of like we were just restricted, like
If I read, what did it say? It felt that people of color were, Europeans thought that people of color were inferior to them, but
right.
they thought that they were good farmers and stuff, so they made them
And then
slaves and stuff.
exactly, and then it just became like the norm to, ship these people over and kind of auction them off and for services. And then it's like, because they were second class citizens or even lower than that, they were unable to do certain things like vote or even have a say in their children, or even like what they do on day to day was just, and then beaten. Like, let's not even forget about all of that. And it's just, it's like they didn't even have a chance. It's like people expect them to fight, and then it's like, how do you fight when your oppressors are just like, outpowering you?
I would say every time we get up, we get knocked down like 10 times harder from everybody because nobody's on our side. What I was gonna say, what caught my attention was the little test thing to see if you the sorting people. Did you do that?
Sorting people? Oh,
Yeah.
I did not. I didn't do much of it. No, but I looked at it, and honestly, the reason why I didn't do it was because I knew I would judge based off looks, and I just automatically just did not want to do it.
I didn't
Didn't
realize
want
what
to
I
do
was
it.
doing until after, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I totally judge people off of how they look, and that's how I seen. That's what I thought race was.
And it's like, and that is exactly like, I knew that. Like, I was just like, I already know that I'm gonna judge. So it's like, I'm not going to, because I know I'm going to be shocked. And I was.
I was
And I was
shocked too.
like, and that goes into, and you know what? This is a perfect leeway into the next topic, which is the first theory, which is that genetically, there are no races.
Exactly.
We literally have not even lived long enough as a species to
Exactly.
divide into races or even subspecies. It's just, it's ridiculous. And it's like, we all, whether you come from, it said within any population, 85% of like genetic, what do you call that? genetics can be found in any population. It could be this city, a next city, any population, 85%. So that ranges, and anybody could have any type of genetic gene, whether it's curly hair, blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes, you
Right.
know.
Okay, so let's talk about what we think are the myths.
So I would say the top two, but the genetics one, I would not say that's in the top, because like I, explained to you before, I feel like nobody's really looking at your genetics. They're
Exactly.
looking at the physical. So it's just like that is out the window. That nobody's looking at like, your DNA and saying, hey, oh, you must be of this. Oh, we relate.
Exactly.
So that's not true. Um, and then going on into the next myth of, that it was man-made by the Europeans and that, blacks were held back from certain opportunities and like just abused for all those years. I mean, that with all the history that I have learned makes total sense and is definitely it just makes sense for everything that's going on now, because it's the same thing that's going on now except with a little bit more quote freedom. Quote freedom.
False idea. And then the other one was class.
Oh yeah. But oh yeah, and then the way that they were saying how it just continues through generations because it's just passed along. So it's like these, okay, if you think about it and we go back to where it all started, it's like you have your family who influences you the most, and you have your
Right.
peers who also influence you. And then it's like just centuries and or just days and months and all that time of like just being passed along this knowledge of that, hey, you're white, so this is what this means. Hey, you're black, so this is what this means. This is our life, like this is what we can do. This is the bar. This is how far we can go.
Right.
And it's like
learn in school.
exactly. And then it's like when parents teach their kids, like even in more recent days, like I would even take it back to, I don't know, when I was like, a little girl, and it was just like that is centuries beyond the slavery period, but at the same time it was like I still heard parents like, hey, don't play with this child, or hey, don't play with this child. And it was just like, why? You're making assumptions and you don't even know this kid. And then you have those little innocent minds that just grow up thinking, I shouldn't be hanging around with these kind of people. And then that's when you people are created.
That just it's random, but that just reminding me, like in middle school, like, or I would hear people say like, oh, why do you talk white? Or why are you acting white? Or you ever heard people say that?
No, honestly, no.
Nobody's, well,
no.
Like,
I mean, I really don't speak very white, I guess you could say.
It just kills me. Like, it doesn't make sense. How do you talk white?
So because you're speaking properly and you're educated, you're speaking white. And see, that's a perfect example of the ideas and the beliefs that certain races have and that pass on to their children, and then they believe like, hey, Hispanics are supposed to speak like this, Chinese or Asian people are supposed to speak like this, black people are supposed to speak like this, and they see that you're black and then it's just like, oh well, she should be all ghetto and then like vulgar. And it's like, no, that's not true. Like there are people of color that are completely educated and can express themselves intelligently without seeming to be ghetto. Like if we have a culture, because a lot of it's cultural too, like for instance me, again, as a light skinned Hispanic, I mean, I have never come into I've never come into paths with a Black person that didn't like me or felt like I was disrespecting them in any way, because I have been within that environment for so long that it's just like, it's not an act, or it's not me trying to be something I'm not. It's just, that's the environment I was taught, and that's where I went to school, that's where I lived, like, for years. And it's just like, this is my verbiage, this is how I express myself now. And I've never come into contact with anybody that has been just like felt offended by the way I conduct myself. And I have friends that range across the spectrum, like, from the palest of the pale to the darkest of midnight. Like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it just depends. Like, this new generation, these last few generations are a little bit more aware.
I think they're a little confused as well too, because they take the whole, even the people of their same color, if they're light skin or dark skin, they take it to a whole nother level. So I think they have, I don't know, I think they're learning things wrong, or they're taking it the wrong way,
I think they're being influenced by, I think, okay, to start off, what you're calling out is a colorism issue that I brought up earlier, that I asked you about. And what I feel creates that is that when certain people of a certain skin complexion are treated one way their whole lives, they develop, a sense of insecurity with that, and then they feel some type of way when someone calls them out on that. So say they were in middle school and they were teased like, oh, you're not Black, you're really light skinned, and the girl's like, I'm Black, like my parents are Black, I just came out a little fair skinned, or I'm albino, or whatever the case may be. When she grows up, she's gonna hold that resentment.
Oh, sorry. Wait. So sorry. So sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay. But yeah.
To end my thought, it's just that, it influences kids as children, and then they hold that resentment as they grow up, as they keep experiencing it. So then once they become an adult, and especially in this era where it's like we have so much social media and we have a platform to speak our mind and to say our opinions with little to no consequences, then that creates a divide between, like, you see the memes of, oh, light skinned girls do this or dark skinned girls do that, or creating that divide. And then when the comments start happening, then you see the battle just emerge, and it's just like, it gets crazy and it just escalates, and then it just contributes to that divide within a certain race, especially a race that is already going through so many obstacles, that it's like, everyone should be uniting at this point. We shouldn't be dividing within ourselves.
I agree. So, color and class are the two biggest myths.
Yes, I would agree with that. I would not say genetics is a big myth at all.
No, I don't think so either. So so that's what we're going to include on our poster.
Yes.
Okay.
Are we still live?